welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and today's car is the BMW M2 Coupe, this sort of junior M3, M4 coupe, and still gets the same straight six turbocharged engine, 460 horsepower for this version, which is, if you like, the plain one. If we look back at history of the M2, it seems to have gained a sort of competition variant and then a CS variant at the end of its life. But this is, if you like, the cooking M2, and no worse for it, because it's also basically the cheapest option. It is £62,420 list. This example is 66,000 because it's got the M drivers pack on it, which costs £2,305. I couldn't find any details what the M drivers pack was, so I've been on their configurator website, and all it seems to do is actually lift the top speed and also gives you a driving course with M instructors, so that's why you tick that box. Doesn't seem to gain anything else, but it is an exciting car. We like this car. Rear drive, straight six, lots of things to like. Let's go and have a closer look. Now, there's no mistaking this particular M2 in this colour, Zandvoort blue, which is a no-cost option. But the thing that really stands out is the sort of thuggish stance of this wide track. It gains the sort of suspension from the M4, and that is sort of widen the body, and could say it has an attitude problem. The first glance at this car, there's no mistaking it is a competition car. You don't need the M2 badge there. It's also open grille down below there, which is surprising. A lot of radiators hiding in that opening. Come round to the side and it continues down the side, sort of, yeah, fat arch here, 19-inch wheels on the front. This particular car has the Pilot Sport 4S Michelin tyres on it. Steel brakes, there isn't a carbon option on this. Red calipers, I think, was an option, and it continues round to the back. So no carbon mirror, I noticed, but a carbon roof. They say it loses 6 kilograms by having a carbon roof as standard on it. And then come around here, and really very noticeable, the wider track starts. Bulbous arches here. The thing about it, if you come all the way around to the back, and it's just this wide stance of it, and it sort of looks heavy, and unfortunately it is heavy. I was looking at the spec of it, and the weight, declared weight, DIN weight on this car, 1,725 kilos, and it sort of looks it. There's no sort of carbon cleverness apart from the roof, but yeah, that's heavier than it should be. If you looked at the original M2 when launched in 2016, was 1,495 kilos, 230 kilos lighter than this 2023 example. But it does gain, well, the quad pipes at the back. I mean, those exhausts, that looks like 100 kilos of exhaust hiding underneath there. The rear diffuser is just a nonsense, that's just styling. I'll open the boot. It's a very practical car. There's a big black hole there, and there's a ski hatch in the rear seat, so the rear seats don't actually flick down, but you won't be able to see anything, I don't think. But yeah, it's this blend of practicality and performance is what this car's about. Inside, we'll have a look at it out when I take it outside, but just to give you a little look, hasn't got the carbon back seats in this, which is a good thing, and the full width dash. And of course, this car, being the press car, is a manual. There is an automatic option as well. Right, let's have a look under the front. And then this straight six turbocharged engine. 460 horsepower and 550 Newton meters of torque. That puts us on par with roughly where the outgoing M2 CS was, the ultimate version. But of course this car is a bit heavier, but it's a gem of an engine. It could only come from BMW. It has the 6-cylinder sound, but it hasn't got as much torque as you get in the M3, M4 situation. But this is two-wheel drive only. Anyway, let's take it outside, take it for a drive. Yeah, you see that it's got frameless doors, this, so the glass hasn't got a frame around it, which is unusual, but it's a coupe, I suppose. And yeah, I'm going to start it up because it's quite warm today, thank goodness. After the summer we've had, it's nice to have a bit of warmth. And this is sort of new to this M2 over the previous version. This is wrap-around screen, this iPad that is extended right across the dash. Previously had those two dials in it, but not in this version. All very familiar. Yeah, electric power steering, obviously standard, and a manual gearbox in this press example. Now, I mention that because that is actually an option on this car. £545 you pay for that. As standard, it gets the 8-speed automatic gearbox rather than the DCT gearbox it used to have. Lots of carbon trim in this one. Strange use of colour. You can see this sort of flash on the seats. Hasn't got the sport seats, which, reading the reports, is a good thing because it has that lump in between your legs and it doesn't really work if you're pressing a clutch. So if you have a manual car, option that. Do not option the very expensive carbon back seats. Yeah, manual adjustment on steering wheel. Nice that the seats go really quite low in this car. You do feel I actually have to put it up slightly because I've got enormous expansive bonnet. I don't know, it's this really high bonnet line out the front, sort of slightly pinched glass, and space in the back, sort of. Well, yeah, back seats are almost against it. No centre armrest. Yeah, usable back from the pub type of thing rather than trips across Europe 4 up. That isn't going to happen. Here, cup holders, a little cubby hole there, space for your phone here. I presume there's charging available as probably as an option. Carbon fibre here, M1, M2 buttons, which actually on this car are a very good thing. Oh, and a strange bit of colour on the door here of the M colour. It's slightly German funky, not sure if it really works, but let's head out and go find some better roads. You'll just hear that. This car has the new speed warning, which is mandatory in all cars from next year, and it's telling me that I'm going over 20 miles an hour on my own drive. Thank you very much, BMW. I don't need to be told that. Now, rather annoyingly, you have to reset the speed limit. Audio driving, yeah, driving, here we go. Yes, warn when speeding. I want to turn that off. And you have to do that every time you drive if you don't want that annoying bleep bleep for 1 mile an hour over the speed limit in any situation. It just slightly winds you up, I find. There's also the setup of the chassis here. You've got the M1, M2 buttons. I use them a lot because it gets rid of the sort of stop start and that sort of thing. But obviously you can also do gear shift assistant, which is the blip. Chassis I've got on Comfort Sport and Sports Plus, steering Sport and brake Sport. As I've said before, I don't understand why you have to have steering and brake. Should just be one setting as far as I'm control, and obviously, yeah, M traction control as well. And then you've got M mode, and I've got road. It will just change the display if I go to Sport. All sorts of things you can do, and I've actually come to like the adjustability you can do on M cars. As we get more of the sort of nannying devices coming in, to be able to preset just press M1, I think is a good thing. And like, I don't know if you saw my recent test of the Emira, that is handicapped because you can't actually do any different settings. So let's set off down here. Yeah, a very definite straight 6, how we've got to love from BMW for many decades, and it's loud and present in this car as well. Manual gearbox sort of falls to hand. Yeah, it's quite nice to use. Some BMW gear changes are not nice to use. This is pretty good to use. It has a slightly rubbery feel to it, but it does fall to hand. It all feels fairly natural. Quiet in here, civilized really. I measured it on my bit of road. It's 74, 75 decibels, so very easy to live with sort of car. Yeah, that's, again, initial impressions. Yeah, I could get to like this. It's sort of the feeling. It's not in any way intimidating, despite that exterior all pumped up. All feels very handy, and BMW, as far as I'm concerned, have absolutely nailed the sort of way it all works. Unfortunately, yes, I do have to go into the screen to adjust the ventilation and heat and that sort of things. I press climate control. I can do all sorts of things on there, which is a shame, but the interface is very friendly. So yeah, they get some points back there. There's no lag. They've really thought about how it works in practice. I like having M1 and M2, so you can have a more aggressive, say, M2 setup, and I'm using M M1 as my sort of everyday go-to, and that one's a bit, if I'm feeling I need a bit more stiffen up the chassis, take the traction control out, that's my M2 one. But anyway, let's squirt it up the hill. I'll change down to the second. How many revs have we got? 3,000 RPM. Oh. Yeah, slight wiggle from behind. It just copes with the traction. But yeah, in no way struggles. Perhaps it's going to be different if it was wet outside, but this is a really nice setup with the reduced torque from this engine, two-wheel drive, doesn't overwhelm the rear wheels. It just encourages you to push it, because yeah, you just feel it's rear-wheel drive, but it's not actually going to bite me that hard. It's worth pushing on through it at the moment. We might change our opinions when we get to some of the bends and my trickier bit of road, but initially you just think, yeah, it's just a creamy 6-cylinder sound up front, manual, rear drive, what's not to like? You have to remember it's got this blip, so I don't have to heel and toe, which still feels very odd if you're used to doing it. It's very slick, it doesn't really go mad on it. I'll do one more, there we are. Really nice change up lights coming up there. Now I've got this, I think the setup I have at the moment on this bumpy bit of road in M1, yeah, you can see it's on comfort. If I go to Sports Plus, I just put it up to sport, which is sort of livable with on British roads, which is say something, but yeah, there is one more set in Sports Plus. Yeah, we'll try it down here. That does feel, yeah, there's no need for Sports Plus down here. Sport is just about bearable. Yeah, I'm going back to M1 and go to comfort, and then it does sort of absorb the bumps better than you expect. Reasonable amount of wheel travel, always feels controllable. Steering, it's quite quick on the steering, but it is there's something between me and the wheels turning, and I put that down to the electric rack. But I also am worried that it's actually got some really fat tyres on the front. I think they're 275 section front tyres on this, which is very big for an undriven axle. And with 50-50 weight distribution, you just think, well, that's a bit odd. It's 285 at the rear, but they've got all the power to transmit, etc. And I think it just gives it a bit of a leaden feel from the front. I'm surprised they're that wide. Great thing is you can just ride the torque in this. Peak torque is from 2.8, 50 revs to 5.8, so a big window of that grunt from this turbocharged straight six. And yeah, there's the bump there, just felt that slightly. Let's turn it around here. Yeah, it just hasn't got quite the sharpness I remember of the previous generation M2 CS around here. Yeah. I mean, it's quick. They can certainly handle there. It has a lot of grip. But yeah, not quite engaged with it. It's got this 50-50 weight distribution. It's got everything going for it. But yeah, so if I'm going into the likes and dislikes, well, number one dislike, there's this weird rubbery feel all the way through the car. It's a great car up to sort of 7-8 temps, because you just enjoy the recipe, the big engine, rear drive, manual gearbox. And then you get beyond that and you think, well, hang on a minute, I haven't quite got the connection I expect from this car. So yeah, I'm not sure, it's just this rubbery feel. Two, the weight. You do feel the weight. 1,725 kilos. I don't know how they do it. Carbon roof, two-wheel drive. How do they do that? But that seems the way cars are going, and you feel the weight just everywhere. Brakes, perhaps not under acceleration because it's got so much grunt, but you just think, come on boys, you can do better than that. And then three is this, when you do push it, you don't quite get the encouragement to push it as hard as you think you should. I mean, there's Driftmaster, there's so much on here, but I don't feel like using it. I just feel like cruising like this. And that makes me wonder if it actually would be better with the standard automatic gearbox, because it is the livability, and maybe that is the gearbox that suits it best. But if you live around me, I think I'd take the manual just because it's enjoyable manual. But it just isn't a car that you're going to go track days and go 10/10 immediately in it, because you feel slightly remote. Let's try it round here. Nice footrest for there. Round here. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, that was pretty good round there. I mean, it does exactly what you expect it to do. Yeah, well, they're not feeling the weight round there. I was just booting it out there. You just feel it doing the wriggling. The M diff does a great job of keeping it sort of under control. Let's move on to the lights. Well, just exist. I really like the combination of the thuggish outside, and then I've got all the toys I get in a modern BMW are all here, and it's a car has two separate characters: the nutty thuggishness and the usability when you just want to cruise. Really like that, and I think, as I said before, I think that would be enhanced even more if you went for the automatic gearbox option. The other nice thing about it not being as powerful as perhaps the M3, M4 is the boost builds up that much quicker, because you haven't got to build such a high boost pressure, and therefore it doesn't feel quite as turbocharged as perhaps those cars do. Do wish they would thin the wheel, but nobody seems to be listing at BMW. They still is an overly thick wheel, but yeah, that seems to be the way of M. They're determined that we'll get to like a fat wheel. Another nice thing about this engine, maximum power high, 460 horsepower. Remember, it's only 3 litres, and that's at 6,250 RPM. But it revs on the red line, or it's yellow in this case, is at 7.2. So you've got that extra 1,000 RPM after peak power that you can play with, and that just stretches the gears nicely when you're actually on roads like this. I can just see that this is the base car. It's vaguely affordable at £66,000. Yes, it's expensive, but all cars are now, and somehow this feels pretty good for an M car, special car. You know, they're going to be rationed because it's 225 grams per kilometre, and yeah, that's not what the government want us to be buying at the moment, so they have to limit the numbers of them to sell because of the fines for each gram over 95 grams. But what do we get? Really nice in green. It's the straight 6 engine, livability, thuggish looks, bit of special car. So yeah, I like it. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 car, but I know there's probably a competition and a CS version in the works, and maybe that will add the extra bit, but they're going to be that much more expensive. Remember, the last CS was £23,000 more than the competition. 66,000. Very enjoyable. I would imagine this car is a very easy car to love and to live with. So there you go. There's my test of the M2. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, well, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.